Hopefully everybody can see our slide. Try to be as colorful as possible to shock everyone out of that mid-afternoon lurch that happens from lunch. Hello, everyone. My name is Ben Welty. I have the privilege of being able to present with my boss, Stephen here, about North Dakota's HHS project management efforts that we are undertaking, specifically through the use of Project for the Web. So I'm going to introduce myself and then I'm going to head over to Stephen to introduce him. I'm a data transformation manager working underneath the office of the Deputy of Commissioner within HHS. HHS is the Health and Human Services Agency for North Dakota. A little neat fact for me is that for those that are familiar with bowling, I'm able to hold a consistent score of 54 with all my bowling. For those that know bowling, that is really, really good, I'm sure. Stephen, I'm going to hand it over to you. And while Stephen's coming off mute, one of the things I'd like to highlight about North Dakota and our Health and Human Services is that our focus is providing services that range from a wide gamut, within our public health, behavioral health, and even human services. Things like epidemiology services, clinical trials, elderly child care, disability services, and improvements. Really, the goal and hope there is to make North Dakota the healthiest state in the nation. We hope to have a fostering of positive, comprehensive outcomes that are going to promote a various economic, behavioral, and physical health and a holistic approach to the individual in our community and our state's well-being. This is underscored by the incredible work that is being held and underway across the agency and HHS today. Um, but obviously, to do those various programs, to do that work, requires a set office, a set team, and that's where Steve certainly helps shepherd in a lot of that.
Good afternoon. Ben, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, my friend.
Hey, all right. See, I just needed to be diligent with buttons and unmuting. Great to be with you. Thanks, Ben. Great introduction. I'm Steve Burgess with the Transformation Office at North Dakota Health and Human Services. Get to work with Ben every day on tackling the complex, interesting, exciting problems and challenges that the largest state agency of North Dakota runs into. The Transformation Office, I often say Ben and I are absolutely spoiled rotten. We get to do all the fun stuff. We get to work in projects and help teams think through what's the best way to approach my issue that I want to solve for the citizens and clients in North Dakota. So we are a supportive PMO role for Health and Human Services. We also deal extensively in change management, which is more and more is becoming really the determination of success or not in our projects. Is great change management, folks understanding how things affect them, not only in the public side, internally to our teams, and our stakeholders that we work with every day. And then thirdly, we work a lot in process redesign. We have favorite flavors of process improvement methodologies that we apply to our projects and change managements. And so we are, again, just absolutely privileged to get to be with you today. And I'm excited to talk to you about our project that has really transformed how we approach project management at Health and Human Services.
Well, I'd like to talk to you, Stephen, about that. When we are looking at, managing the scale of projects that are needed for Health and Human Services for the state, I assume that there's a litany of various considerations and challenges that you're having to consider and go through.
Absolutely. So, as we approached, how do we get really good at project management? I think we had to kind of take an assessment of where we were at as an agency. And so Ben and I are both recent additions in the last couple of years to HHS. And so, we really had the benefit of kind of coming in with fresh eyes and maybe some experiences from outside the agency. what we found was, really, Chris and Steve from Auburn had mentioned that crawl, walk, run model. I we joke that think we're probably still in the crib, and that at some point we have fallen out of the crib and we're still trying to figure out which way is up and how to crawl, things like that. And so, um, the question of how do you take a health and human services agency that does not employ very many, if any at all, strict project manager roles or FTEs or staff. So Ben had kind of talked through the different divisions. We economic assistance, public health, human services, temporary assistance for needy families, Medicaid, behavioral health programs, and then operational divisions of finance, HR, comms, legal, our exec office. There's really nobody in there that you could point to and say, hey, this is our our litany, our 50 deep roster of project managers. And so we wanted to really come at the concept of how do we get great at project management by saying, how do we empower the folks that work at HHS in those different divisions that may be program directors, policy experts, but don't play in the space of projects unless they are trying to accomplish a new project, new program, new IT system, something like that. How do we give them the tools, the know-how, the system, the processes, and the collaboration that will make them successful without having to make them sit down and take time, take a year off, go through a PMP certification, get them PMP certified, and then get them working in an arcane project tool that they may have different nomenclature they're not familiar with. And so, as we kind of took that assessment, talked through, what is the need of our agency, with some things stood out, right? We know we needed to get really good on communication and collaboration. So we have cross-cutting teams across policy and program divisions that may not work with each other every day, right? We may not be working in that same space, but when projects arise, often we'll have cross-cutting teams that are from multiple divisions that we don't have normal communication with. So how do we make sure that everyone has that line of sight, right? You'll hear that term often from Ben and I when we talk about what's important to success, is having that line of sight to see, if this group is working on that and I'm on deck to start my work after they're done. How do I know that? How do we share information? How do we share progress? And so we were looking at, document sharing. How do we share one source of truth? How do we make sure that comments, steps, even on a task, we can share that? How do we make sure that we're not duplicating efforts? And so we are at the state of North Dakota. We do employ the Microsoft 365 environment across all of our different agencies. So we knew that we've already got a leg up, really, because we have the infrastructure to use some of the concepts like SharePoint, to use things like Azure, to use Office products and apps. And so we knew that that in itself was a benefit and maybe a way to ease the transition. So getting great on collaboration and communication.
Well, that really helped you narrow down on some of the key features that you needed, right, for being able to make a project management tool that could handle the wide swath of skill sets, from our clinic folks out in the field, all the way up to legislative leads and assistants and aides that are in the Capitol, even to lowly folks like myself, right? You were able to narrow down on a couple key areas, if I'm not mistaken,
We
as
were.
part of this assessment.
Yep, absolutely. So as we talked through, we know we needed to get there's key things that stood out that we know we need to have in hand, and folks are going to need in pocket before they begin these larger projects or smaller projects. We know that at the heart of it, project management, we like to take the magic out of it. So that's kind of another little joke there, is that at the end of the day, it's tasks. Projects are tasks. And so we use big words like variance, schedules, and baselines that folks that may not deal in that space every day know. But at the end of it, it's just tasks and getting it done and making sure folks know who owns what. And so we wanted to do simplicity in task management. Collaborative task management. How can I understand how my tasks are dependent on others' tasks? And to bucket those, to create categories for those, to create, baselines, yes, dates, accountabilities, but at the end of the day, share that information with folks that may not be in a project management system every day. Visualization of timelines has been key to understand, where we're starting and where we're ending, what the definition of done and what the definition of success is for different categories of tasks, things like that. And then resources. All of that was lumped under project planning. It's just those basics of, if Ben and I are tasking folks, at 80 hours in a work week, we need to step back and take a look and say, hey, how is this going to happen? We can't make folks work 2 weeks in one. So how do we really get good on that? Collaboration, real-time updates. So we need systems that are available at a keystroke, that folks can jump into, understand what's expected of them, collaborate on a document, create edits, create different things that may be a problem that they see coming. How do they log that? Share files without duplication. Reporting, we know we needed to get really good on that. We know we needed robust information as to all of our different divisions. And so, it's interesting how, when we take a look at how an agency is broken out, we often call them divisions, or we call them sections or units. And so, that term division really suggests that there's a separation. And so how do we share that understanding of work across those divisions? How do we share that understanding of what's happening and what's important to those different work groups in those divisions? And so we knew that sharing reporting that could drill down to information that's just important to me. We knew that sharing information for folks at an executive level needing to see the 30,000 foot view, but then also for, something as simple as myself, Ben, and another one of our partners tackling a project together. How can we look at just that through our reporting? And so we wanted robust ways to look at all levels. Show me what's important to me. Give me my Monday morning screen that I can look at and understand, hey, this is what our team's tackling this week. We know that implementation is going to be key, right? So we needed a strategy to roll that out. How do we get people trained? How do we get people comfortable and move from comfort to command of a technology that can help them really track a project? And at the same time, how do we make sure that we're actually moving the dial? How do we understand, are we moving projects to progress, to success, to completion using this? So how are we measuring that? One of our favorite sayings is from Eli Goldratt, who said, tell me how you measure me, I'll tell you how I'll perform. And so we wanted to make sure we had metrics in place and ways to measure how things were getting done so that we could actually say, yes, this is a value add.
So I assume that there was a fairly exhaustive process in trying to find a right tool or something that would, again, have that intuitive nature to reach all of our various services and our division sections and so forth, as well as our users. And that's where I believe that our team really came to an understanding that Project for the Web was a best suited solution for us at that time. Again, you mentioned the seamless there's a seamless integration with our already existing environment of Microsoft. We're a Microsoft shop, very much like others. We have Teams and the 365 productivity suite that we utilize, and so having something that could easily incorporate into that and not be a new trick, it's the same hat or old hat for others to learn. What were some of the other reasons that we kind of, that you found that you really gravitated towards the Project for the Web solution, other than others? I mean, I know we have a listing here on the board, but were there any other major standouts?
Yeah, absolutely, Ben. So I kind of get soapboxy. That's a new term, by the way, I'm inventing right now in front of many people. I get soapboxy, thinking about, I'd mentioned taking the magic out of project management, right? And so when we looked at what is a tool that's going to be usable and accessible, I think of something that has a learning curve that is not steep. I think of a tool that has very similar or understandable formats that I see every day in my other office softwares that I'm using, right? I see something that really, becomes almost a way to democratize the project management processes in a lot of way. For HHS, we are certainly a supportive PMO as opposed to a directive PMO. And so we want collaboration, we want team-based approaches, we want to help people set a vision and help them, make sure that they can build that out and be successful. And so really a tool that people could walk into, begin to use without 40 hours of training, something that they have on their screen. They say, oh yeah, yep, I see this. I deal with very similar programs like this a lot. And so kind of that accessibility and the understanding that it's not a scary software to jump into really come to mind as terms of, softer requirements that are very important.
No, I know one of the things that we liked also about it was that there was a high level of customization that also was able to be incorporated in the project for the web, especially to make it fit HHS's need, as well as help get some of that rooted, accessible project management understanding and skill sets, so that it was a little bit of a point click. However, I don't know. My development skills are nil. Steve, I don't know how savvy you are. So I think at that point, after our team was able to help kind of narrow in on that solution set, we also wanted to find a vendor and a partner. And I think that we found a trusted, relationship with PROJILITY. I'm curious, when you found that the selection of working with PROJILITY, what were some of the reasons that drove you towards leveraging their skills? I know that Annie had highlighted some of the many solutions and services that they offer, but what were some of the details that you found?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first and foremost, our North Dakota had a relationship, and still it has a relationship, a longstanding relationship with PROJILITY. PROJILITY actually built the system that our state project management office, which is operated by our North Dakota IT department. PROJILITY partnered with NDIT is the acronym, and built out really the first PMO-based system in the state. And so we had, in taking a look at, hey, how do you measure future success or predict future success? I always say look to the past. And PROJILITY had a great track record working with them. They ended up going with the Project Web app, as Auburn, Chris and Steve had talked about a similar format and similar function. We knew that we needed something with kind of that accessibility in mind, right? For program managers and policy directors, as opposed to folks that deal in the project management space. And so, just talking to NDIT and our partners that had worked with PROJILITY before, it became apparent that, really it's a swath of different options that we could look at. We saw that PROJILITY really had a great understanding of how to harness all those different Microsoft platform tools that are now really starting to puzzle piece themselves together, right? So Power Automate, Power Apps, Power BI, workflow, the different task and project monitoring concepts, and Planner, Project for the Web, Project Web App. And so we saw a partner there that could really, has worked with North Dakota, been successful with North Dakota, that we like to preserve our relationships, and so saw a real opportunity to continue that. And so, again, as we're trying to embrace really those workflow automation, things that cut down on clicks as opposed to increase, that make things more intuitive rather than more complex. We saw PROJILITY as a great partner to kind of take a look at and help us walk through that. And I think walking through that with some of their staff members, I think we learned a lot about the difference between what we want and what we need. I'd mentioned before that crawl, walk, run is something we're not quite at, or we were not at when we first started tackling this. We were in the crib or about to fall out of the crib. And so, working with them, I think we could see, we're asking for X, but really we need A, right? Or we're asking for something incredibly complex. And with their help and insight, we saw that the root cause was um, something that we could tackle with this workflow or this automation or this stage gating. And so really had the opportunity to pick their brains on how we could build a process where it didn't exist.
Now we've been live for several months now, and we've been starting to do a little bit of our what I call a walking tour of some of the divisions and agencies, doing that slow ramp up, that pilot to a slow, um, sectional roll on to even now a division and an agency roll on. And over the last couple of months, we've also had a chance to do some reflection on what we've gone through this process as we've selected a tool and we started considering what is the best process or the best practices for project management, a consistent standard across our agency and even hopefully further with the state. um, there was a lot of not, I wouldn't say heartaches, but a lot of learned lessons that we had and a lot of assumptions that we had to take back and start considering as we move forward. So with the various lessons learned and maybe some takeaways and suggestions that we would offer to other folks here, one of the things that I know you and I have talked about is look at the process, look at what we're trying to solve. What is it that you're trying to accomplish well before a solution or a tool or a magic bullet can come into play? That's probably been the biggest one that I've taken away because I know a lot of folks want to gravitate towards a set tool or a technology to just fix it all. But you, as well as many of our other sectional leaders, have been able to help course correct that because again, once you focus on that root customer, that root issue, it really kind of helps derive, what is the actual necessary steps to accomplish whatever your objective or goal is. That's been the biggest lesson learned that I've had. Was there any particular lesson that you took away from this implementation that really galvanized with you?
I would echo that, Ben, 100%. Having a process in place and finding where the already the bottlenecks or the issues, the constraints exist was important. I would say having clear expectations, clear understanding of what people's role will be. The old saying is what the tech is the easy part, the people part is difficult, and so really having that buy-in, via change management, I believe is kind of the make or break. If we don't have active and visible sponsorship, we can often land in a place where rather than a full wide agency implementation, it becomes pockets of coalitions of the willing, right, or coalitions of the interested. And so we, as we broadly expand this system, as when we're bringing on different divisions, really having a full understanding of roles, responsibilities in the system, how to use it, making sure folks understand the why and understand the WIFM, right, or the what's in it for me, has been really important, I think.
Oh, absolutely. The WIFM, and that's pending, I believe, on that acronym, right, Steve?
If
Um,
it's not, it should be by the end of this
yes.
meeting.
But then also, I think what I find really great about the tool is, and again, with our partnership with PROJILITY, is that ability to continuously evolve, to continuously improve or adjust or make those micro course corrections. Because one thing that we all know about project management or even change management is nothing is consistent for the most part, right? There's always changes or additions or new asks and things that we need to be prepared and ready for. And so I'm very excited about what our potential future can allow. And again, I know that everybody talks about AI. I know that it's a huge thing, but I believe that that's something that we are, hoping to incorporate some AI powered, features for more, intelligent task prioritization, resource allocation, helping prevent me from maybe overbooking myself or others, and even doing like, risk assessment. Is there any particular future endeavor that or future plan that, we have a listing here on the board between advanced analytics, to greater cross department visibility, to even, developing those user champions, mini, well, I wouldn't call them mini because I'm a small guy, better versions of me out there. What is there any particular future plan that you're really excited about bringing into this?
Yeah, I am really excited about the different tools that may be available as Microsoft apps evolve and AI becomes integrated, truly integrated, where we're seeing, some of the concepts that are in Copilot and embedding, AI capability within an app itself, right? How do you embed app in Office? How do you embed app in Project? How do you embed app or AI in those different things? And so I just see that more and more an evolution of kind of how we started with the system, Ben, is really it's meant to be accessible, take the learning curve out of project management. Don't make me a project management expert, but make it so that I can look like one, right? um, Give me the tools to spin up a rock solid work breakdown structure. Give me the tools to identify a risk or a timeline constraint, and act on that if I need to. So really AI integration, I see as something that's really exciting, and what that's going to look like, over the next few years as it starts to accelerate. How we can embed that to further empower, you know, folks that are not project managers to be just as good, and to play in that same space as our project managers, and to feel confident doing it, I think is really important.
Well, I think it'd be great to give folks an idea and a demo of what we've done. We have, two environments that we'd like to show our sandbox, and I'd even, if time allows, and Annie, I'm going to ask you to keep me honest on our time here as we go through a quick demo of what we've done here, if that's suitable for our folks. So again, one of the big things that we took away, and Steve, please correct me on this, is defining that what a project is as versus operations, right? And that was always a big endeavor. So a lot of what we have listed as some of our first steps here, some of our choices as people come in, is to start having that conversation, having that consideration. And that was by design, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We are big believers in concepts like mistake proofing and getting a full kit on the front end so that work can begin. And so um, we tried to design this, and again, this is our 1.0. We're really excited for what this looks like, and it's already evolving too, with Progility's help. But the idea that hey, let me put in the basics that I need to start working on something, and to start crafting my idea, start building my business case, and just let me off the hinges. Let me do what I need to do. Start building my different plans. And so yeah, on this screen specifically, you see kind of the person can really start documenting, what's the metadata around my project, but at the same time, not be hampered by that if it's still unclear, right? I think the red asterisks denote, three different pieces of data just to create a shell and to start work. And so very unintrusive. We want to meet people where they're at in terms of their project, and how it's progressing. So we meant to have this to be something that you start small and then flesh out as it becomes more clear.
So I'm just making a quick project here, and as you can see, with just the amount of time that Stephen was on there, I was able to actually go through and highlight some major components and even start documenting some of the project story. Now, none of this is also hard set. Some of this can also be modified, and that's something that we find ourselves doing quite a bit, is what we think is the original problem, and then as we dive further into it, what is the actual true problem? What is the actual true solution? So, this is an example of just emergency prep refresh for our particular office, our transformation office. And I'm gonna, put this as myself as the requester as we go through here. And just like that, we were able to have the initial project already started. Now, what's great about this is that we've also kind of devolved this into creating ideas and then into projects. So this is actually started at as an idea. It's an idea that's been submitted. And as we go through and we start defining out who is the actual sponsor, who is the actual problem, the solution, customer, and so forth, we can just derive and look at all the other various ideas, and maybe we can start seeing those like-minded um, ideas, and maybe there's a one central project. Let's say our transformation office is doing an emergency prep, but we're also looking over at our you know uh, retention and compliance office, and they're doing emergency prep work as well. So now that we have these two different eyes, maybe we can combine them or maybe amalgamate them and creating a one mega project for handling both these, or they can maintain their own separate ones. What I've also liked is that we have this workflow that helps kind of control that intake, if you will, and making sure that we're not just having all those multiple projects being fired off without any type of central awareness or oversight by, let's say, an office of transformation. Um, when you're considered this workflow, Steve, what were some of the thoughts in this? You wanted to have a divisional insight, an executive approval, and then also one of the big things that I enjoy is actually consider a lot of the pre-work, that process, the considerations, whether or not our IT has to be involved, if there is any known issues and considerations to have.
Yeah, absolutely. We wanted this to mirror, the process that we wanted. We really built this as a 2B, and PROJILITY and their great team helped us really think through, okay, what does that look like in terms of stage gates? And so we know that we wanted governance, right? I think that's a term that more and more people have on their minds as we've got minimal, or I should say, finite resources, finite time. How do we make sure that projects that have the backing of our executive group and division leads, and we're actually charged or mandated to complete, how do we make sure that the important projects get the resources and move fast? And how do we make sure that there's line of sight to our executives and to our senior leaders to understand which projects are progressing? And so really stage gating without being intrusive, right? Leveraging the Teams environment, leveraging approvals in Teams and then through Outlook, so that don't make me log into another system, just have it pop up right in the Teams that I'm working in, or my email that I'm checking right now, and leverage those stage gates to let me know what's expected of me. Because again, our folks at HHS, the vast majority are never going to have the title of project manager, but we need them to act like that occasionally. And so how can we help them to know what's expected in a project at a certain time, depending on the status?
Well, and just again, is a very handy, useful tool and very intuitive. As you can see here, just in a few moments, I was able to create a few main tasks, start assigning them. If you don't mind, Steve, I'd like to kind of showcase one of our other projects that we have a little bit more defined that has been going on here, and just kind of show that you can go from that initial state into something much more robust. You highlighted being able to create those buckets. There's this particular project that I've created a while ago that highlights those various buckets, those Kanban boards. I know you're a big fan of that, right? It allows us to derive what are particular work streams or mindsets that we want to have. This is just one view of that. You also mentioned the ability to have that timeline, and this is another fantastic feature that I like within the project for the web, is to see how each of these various buckets would overlap into each other. And perhaps, even more simply, keep it as simple as possible if you wanted to, right? You don't have to go to that massive cross agency. You can keep something like our own data governance for our Office of Transformation to a simplified task, which I've liked quite a bit. I see that everybody got their tasks done there. Can easily make quick checklists to identify, set up some due dates, and also some dependencies as you liked. You can't start task A or you can't start task B until task A is done, right? So being able to have that ability to move around and shift. One of the other items that I've enjoyed directly out of these projects, and here's another version of that, is those risks, being able to highlight the various risks and keep them raised, and also drive that awareness, not just to the team members, but to you, like you as my boss and other executive leaders, so that there's that oversight and insight. Is there anything else that inside the project for the web that you particularly have been finding, very diamond in the rough, unexpected joy?
I think you hit my favorite, right? A day without Kanban boards is like a day without sunshine, I think is the saying. But what I really enjoy too is just, as new functionality is added to these different software platforms, right? Like Project for the Web, Project Web App, um, Power Automate Plan, or whatever the case may be. New functionality continues to appear, and it doesn't directly impact or throw it off, right? It works seamlessly. So, for example, um, Microsoft added, the ability to create a baseline in or to track your baselines within Project for the Web.
Mhm.
Recently, they also created the ability to track tasks assigned to goals. And so, as we're very goal
Oh yeah.
oriented in what we're trying to accomplish, the ability to have new functionality added without having to do a reinstall, without having to do a completely uninstall and then bring in a new environment because it's all web based. I think has been incredibly powerful for us too.
Agree. And I know that we continue to have more and more of our agency leads and divisions and section leaders start adding into this. And so the other big item that we've just briefly touched on is the ability to have that oversight, that report, if you will, across the entirety of the agency. Now, this is just a version of that, a mock-up of like my own reports, but being able to have that entire portfolio view you've mentioned has been another welcome addition, especially as our leadership is asking for questions on, where are we spending our time, how much is in flight, what is our intake. Now, I know that we're going a little over our time, and I again want to thank everybody for sitting with us. Stephen, thank you very much for having this conversation with me. I greatly appreciate your time, and thank you to the Fragility team for allowing us to have an opportunity here to highlight some of the work that we're doing here in North Dakota.
Hey, thank you, Ben. You're a heck of an MC, and yeah, a big thanks to Fragility for letting us talk about some stuff we're really excited about.